Alrighty, let me do what all the NFL draft picks do. Go on stage. They get their little hat. I don't got a commissioner to hug, or a hand to shake, or a jersey to hold. But we are here today to talk about the NFL Draft 2025 and how it left me completely shook. I couldn't believe what happened, what transpired to lead to the events that it led to, particularly when it came to Shedeur Sanders. So we're going to go over some things with this NFL Draft. Not every pick, not every team, not every situation. This is not a full fucking breakdown. But this is more of a 30,000 view look at what the hell happened this NFL Draft and what I thought about it. So if you like this kind of content, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to support it. And let's jump right into it. So the biggest news of the NFL Draft was obviously Shedeur Sanders not getting picked in the first round. He wasn't picked in the first round. He wasn't picked in the second round. He wasn't picked in the third round. He wasn't picked in the fourth round. It was round 5, the 144th overall pick. He finally goes to the Cleveland Browns. Now, guys, this whole video is not just about Shedeur, but this early portion's going to be. I had Shedeur Sanders as my number 1 prospect coming out of college. Top quarterback. If I was advising the Titans, I would have told them, pick this kid. This kid was clutch as hell in college. He had a Hail Mary to win a game. He was explosive. He could destroy you down the field with the football. I think his ceiling is a better clutch Dak Prescott. Seriously. This guy has pocket presence. He can take sacks. He hardly got hurt. He had the highest completion percentage in the entire country in college last season. And he took Colorado from being basement dwellers to basically Big 12 serious contenders in college football. Not that they didn't even have a great defense. It was their offense led by him. Who do you think threw Travis Hunter all those balls? More on Travis Hunter in a minute. But the Cleveland Browns took Shedeur Sanders. But it wasn't with their first pick, their second pick, their third pick, their fourth pick, their fifth pick, their sixth pick. Their 7th time around, they finally said, all right, let's pick him up. They got a steal. I'll give him that. But there's another problem here. Their 3rd round pick was Dillon Gabriel, another quarterback, another sort of undersized, super accurate QB. And that leaves the Browns in a very interesting position, and why I was surprised they ended up going back to Shedeur at all. What are you doing? They literally, yes, they had Deshaun Watson on the roster. We're going to take him out because he's hurt, and then he's never going to play again for the Browns. Everybody knows that. But your quarterback room added 4 additions. You traded for Kenny Pickett. What for now, I don't know. You signed Joe Flacco in free agency. And then you figure, okay, well, they're going to maybe add a quarterback in the draft, right? Because I don't think Pickett or Flacco is the long-term answer. You did that with Dillon Gabriel. You could have picked Shedeur there. You picked Dillon Gabriel. So I thought, okay, case closed. Then you pick Shedeur. What are we doing? You can't have all 4 on the roster. One of the 4's got to go. And if it's Pickett, why'd you trade for him? I don't understand Cleveland. If you're drafting a quarterback, why are you drafting another quarterback? You were one of the worst teams in the league for a reason. You have needs here. Yeah, you added a D tackle. You added a linebacker. You added a running back. Actually, you added 2 running backs. So you added 2 running backs and 2 quarterbacks. You added a tight end. You added a linebacker and a D tackle. What about a fucking receiver? What about an offensive lineman? Whoever you put in at quarterback needs people to throw the ball to, and they also don't need to get knocked on their ass. So I'm very confused by Cleveland's draft. They could have had Travis Hunter, who is Shedor's teammate with the number 2 pick. In fact, even though I did mock Shedeur Sanders to possibly go to the Steelers, that's only because I wasn't including trades. I thought they would have got to trade back in the first round ahead of Pittsburgh to go get Shedeur. Boy, was I wrong. They didn't have to do that. Apparently, they could wait till round 5. And we'll get into all those teams that passed up Shedeur, too. But I'm very confused what the plan is here. They either wasted a draft pick or 2, or actually, they wasted at least 2 draft picks because they traded a pick for Kenny Pickett. They drafted Dylan Gabriel, and they drafted Shedeur Sanders. But none of them are probably even starting. It's probably Joe Flacco that starts. So they wasted at least 2 draft picks, maybe 3. I'm sure out of Gabriel and Shedeur, one of the 2 is going to get the reins. 2026, they have a lot of picks thanks to the Jacksonville trade. But you're going to want to know who your quarterback is by then. Does you no good if Flacco starts all year anyway. So the Browns have quite a situation to manage. So do the Giants, which we're going to get into them in here in a minute. But I don't get it. I don't understand it. And since we are talking about the Browns, real quick, I want to make mention, they could have had Travis Hunter. They traded down to add more picks. I guess because they felt like we added more picks, we could waste more picks. I don't know. We'll talk more about Travis Hunter here in a minute. But to stay on the Shedeur thing, the Saints could have had him at pick 9. Didn't bite. Okay. They could have had him at pick 40. They did draft a quarterback. They drafted Tyler Shough. I don't understand it. I don't get what the Saints are doing. Shedeur Sanders was right there for the taking. He's much better than Tyler Shough. He has a way higher ceiling than Tyler Shough. I mean, what are you doing? Are you going to stick with Derek Carr in 2026? Is Shough going to be the guy and you wanted somebody that's already aged to step in the role? Is that the plan here? What of Spencer Rattler, who you drafted last year? What of Jake Haener? You drafted Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener. You were the Browns of this year, but in last year's draft. So the Saints have a full QB room as well. Of nobody that is actually elite. The Browns have a full QB room of nobody that's actually elite yet. We'll have to wait and see, right? And that brings me up to the Giants. The Giants went out of their way to sign Jameis Winston, to sign Russell Wilson, and then their 3rd draft pick, they picked Abdul Carter. I thought, okay, the Giants are in, hey, let's try to win now mode. They're not worried about a quarterback. Wrong. They traded back into the 1st round, which remember, 1st round quarterbacks, there's emphasis to play them. And they didn't draft Shedeur. They drafted Jackson Dart. So now you have a QB room that has Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, and Jackson Dart. What do you do? Is Jackson Dart sitting a year? He had a lot of experience in college. He doesn't need to sit. But Russell Wilson's a somewhat quality starter, right? And what about Jameis Winston? One of these 3 guys is almost not even going to have to suit up. That's Jameis Winston thought he was going to be a starter somewhere. Jameis Winston signs with the Giants, so what's the next thing you do? You sign Russell. What's the next thing you do? You draft a quarterback. How does he feel? he's got to feel about as bad as Kenny Pickett. And I know what you're thinking. Who gives a fuck what they feel? They're NFL guys. Yes, but in that meeting, I'm sure it might have been discussed, hey, you got a chance to start. Jameis has no chance to start. No chance. And your team still has a ton of needs. You still have a ton of needs. The Giants, I like what they did better in the draft than what the Browns did. They added Cam Scatterboo at running back. But the Giants had a lot of needs. There's a reason they were towards the top of the draft. I'm confused. And then we got to talk about the Steelers. Because honestly, they have the opposite issue. The Browns try to lit up their QB room. The Saints did draft a quarterback, but it wasn't who I thought they might draft. And the Browns try to load up their quarterback room. Okay, it's commendable to some degree. Guys get hurt. Obviously, the Browns and Giants are front and center for knowing about that. And so are the Saints now. So I guess they want to make sure they got something tangible at QB. But what about the team that went to the playoffs last year? They don't seem to give a rat's ass. A rat's ass if they're tangible at quarterback. They look like they're ready to roll into the season with Mason Rudolph. What? Mason Rudolph? The number one pick's the Titans, right? And the Titans saw Mason Rudolph and they're like, no thank you. What are you doing? You've been waiting on Aaron Rodgers. He didn't give you a decision before the draft. It was the perfect excuse to go draft Shedeur. Shedeur would have been perfect in Pittsburgh. It's criminal that he's not there. Seriously, he has to go compete with the Browns for a job. Shedeur should be on the Steelers. Even if you brought Rodgers in after the draft, then Shedeur can wait a season. But the fact the Steelers didn't take a quarterback, didn't take a different quarterback even, like Jalen Milroe, and up to this point in the draft that I've seen at least, what are you doing if you're the Steelers? You legitimately have no answer at quarterback. You could be rolling in with Mason Rudolph. And one might say, okay, well, Mason Rudolph's helped lead him to the playoffs before. Look, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers have been on an historic run where he doesn't have a losing season. But you know what? Eventually, you need to strive better for greatness. You let Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston leave to New York teams. Russ to the Giants, Fields to the Jets. I'm sure they'll at least be starting. But I don't get what the Steelers are doing whatsoever. Then next we got to talk about some other teams that could have had Shedeur. Some other maybe not so obvious teams outside of those four. Well, like I said, the Titans, they went with Cam Ward. Okay, I can't bash that move too much. Okay, that's fine. But let's just go down the list of teams and divisions. If you're Jacksonville, would it not be incumbent upon you, even if it was the 5th round, to maybe take a look at Shedeur? Have him on the roster, I know it'd be a distraction, but to have him on the same roster, the same team that picked Travis Hunter, and if Trevor Lawrence fails, you can go to Shedeur. Like, is it not worth a try? You lost Mac Jones as a backup. I don't know. I think Jacksonville maybe should have took a surprise look at Shedeur in the later rounds. Speaking of Jacksonville with Travis Hunter, look, they're getting a good player. He's a corner. He's a receiver. They give up a lot for him. I hope he plays both sides of the ball. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to watch some Jacksonville games. But they probably should have maybe looked at Shedeur. Also, side note, I'm happy my Patriots they seem to have a great draft, and I'm glad they didn't take Shedeur because I think maybe we could build something around Drake May. But sticking with the AFC South at least, Texans obviously don't need Shedeur there. The Colts, if you are the Colts, You already know Anthony Richardson's not going to work. That's why you brought in Daniel Jones. I don't think it would have been the worst idea in the world to draft Shedeur in the 5th round, even if it was the 5th round, right? Let him just sit. Let Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones work their shit out in 2025. And if neither one pan out, 2026, Shedeur, here you come. I just think it's something that should have been considered. AFC East, we said my Patriots are good, Bills are good, obviously. The Jets should be looking at Shedeur. Like, the Jets don't have a full QB room. They brought in Justin Fields, a guy who's been hurt before. They're coming off of the Aaron Rodgers fiasco. And I don't see how it would have been a conflict for the Jets to, even in the 2nd round, hey, Shedeur's there. Let's pick him up. And we'll let Fields play the year out. If he sucks, we'll bring in Shedeur. I think that would have been fine. It would have been a pretty good move. Maybe not a 1st round guy. I get it. You have other needs. I understand. But if he was there for all these picks for the Jets, at some point you got to go, should we kick the tires on somebody that could actually throw the fucking football? Really? The Dolphins. You got to wonder, hey, Tua always gets hurt. He always gets hurt. I actually predicted the Dolphins in the 5th round would take Dylan Gabriel because he's a very similar style to Tua. And I think in some ways Shedeur can run an offense similar to Tua. And I think Shedeur would have been fine in a later round pick. But you know, when you start getting in these later rounds, bringing in somebody like Shedeur with his media attention could cause insecurities. And these quarterbacks are insecure people when it comes to their jobs. Very insecure. And Mike McDaniels doesn't want to do anything to make Tua uncomfortable. But maybe he should feel a little uncomfortable. And then you go to, like I said, the AFC North. The Browns and Steelers needed him. The Browns got a steal, but again, the Dylan Gabriel draft pick makes no sense then, right? The Steelers absolutely needed him. We went over that. Bengals don't need him. Ravens don't need him, obviously. They're solid at quarterback. You go to the AFC West. Chargers are good. Chiefs are good. Broncos are good. They ain't drafting QB, obviously. Or if they do, it's a clear backup. The Raiders. Tom Brady helped mentor this kid. Literally. And Tom Brady has some say-so in this draft for the Raiders. I get not picking him in the 1st round. So many people were telling me, oh, watch, they could pick him in the 1st round. No, you don't need to pick him in the 1st round. This is if the magic scenario happens where he drops to the 2nd round even. And it happened, and they still passed on him. I'm glad they drafted Ashton Jeanty. It made sense. They had other needs on the team. Geno Smith, maybe not the long-term answer. Pete Carroll, maybe not the long-term answer. But the Raiders are trying to get good and get good in a hurry. But at some point, that 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round comes around, and Shedeur's on the board, and you're a Tom Brady guy, why the fuck not? He has the luxury, he could sit 2 years behind Geno. And then really just be completely like Jordan Love ready to come in. When the next coach comes in for the Raiders and Geno's time is up, you could bring Shedeur in. It made sense. It made a lot of sense. But the Raiders didn't pull the trigger. Then you go to the NFC North. The Vikings, they got J.J. McCarthy. They hope he pans out. I understand why they didn't pick Shedeur here. The Packers got Jordan Love. They feel comfortable there. The Bears have Caleb Williams. They feel comfortable. The Lions have Jared Goff, and they need a lot of defensive help. I'm okay with the entire NFC North passing on Shedeur. That's fine. NFC West. You got to think. Cardinals, they believe in Kyler. Okay, fine. Seahawks did draft a quarterback. They drafted Jalen Milroe. Clearly the backup, though. Clearly not a threat to Sam Darnold unless Sam Darnold shits the bed. Because Jalen Milroe is a total project. I think Shedeur would have made things a little too pressurized for Sam. But again, if you drafted a quarterback, I think Shedeur was the best quarterback. So I can't really defend it. You know, taking Milroe over Sanders. So maybe the Seahawks should have took Sanders. The Rams, you know Shedeur would have loved it in L.A. Is Matthew Stafford playing forever? I need to know. Because Shedeur could sit behind him 2 years and then play. But the Rams, they never care about a succession plan. They're always year to year. That's how they're always going to be. Fine. I'll grant you that. The 49ers would have been interesting. They're in a current contract dispute with Brock Purdy. Drafting Shedeur would completely... The internet would have broke. I'm not even going to fantasize about that. That would have been crazy. All right, we go to the NFC East. Again, the quarterback I compare Shedeur to the most is Dak. The Cowboys have a lot of needs on offense. But Skip Bayless would have been over the moon had they drafted Shedeur. Washington don't need him. Eagles don't need him. Giants, we already went over the Giants. NFC South, we already went over the Saints. It would have made so much sense for him to go to the Saints. I think it would have been a match made in heaven right there. I think the Saints and the Steelers would have made so much sense for Shedeur. And the Browns make sense for Shedeur too if they didn't already draft Dylan Gabriel. That's where I'm hung up on it. The Panthers, they're all in on Bryce Young this season upcoming. Give him a full another year. The Bucks, they like Baker, obviously. Falcons need Penix a year. Okay, all right. NFC's mostly actually good. It's the AFC teams that don't have the elite quarterbacks that really could have used them. But yeah, overall, just this is nuts, man. This whole thing's nuts. And really, it dominated the draft. I've never seen a player that could have been number 1 overall drop to pick 144. That's fucking nuts. Like, this has got to be the biggest story in NFL draft history. And really, I got nothing more to say, guys. I'll tell you this. When Madden 26 comes out, I'm subbing Shedeur in. Subbing him in. Every time. Every time. Alright, I'll see y'all later.